Badgers, one angry pagan here. Now, this one has been over a year in coming. Yeah, I've been pretty shit on this. It's been... I seem to have this lingering throat infection, which means that my videos are a bit up and down. Like, sometimes I feel well enough to do video after video. Other times, I'm coughing up too much to do a video. You could say stop smoking, but plenty of other people I know smoke and they don't have the same issue. So it's not them. It's not actually smoking that's causing this issue. I don't know what it is. But either way, last time... Okay, so this one is going to be a continuation of my series on natural-based solutions, NBSs. Last time I spoke about this, last year, I think. Let me just double check that. Yeah, 11 months ago. Fuck's sake. That's a bit shit from me, I know. Sorry. Last time I spoke about this, we finished the introduction. And this time, we're going into section 1 of this report. This, again, I'll put the link to this in the description so you guys can check it out yourselves. This is from the British Ecological Society, their website, the British www.britishecologicalsociety.org. So yeah, the last time we was going over all the summary and the introduction. This time, I'm going to go into a bit more detail. We're going to go into a bit more detail with this. So yeah, section 1, habitat-specific nature-based solutions, a review of the available evidence. This is important. There are many who would like to say that it isn't, but it damn well fucking is. So, let's have a look, shall we? Now, before I start, please like, subscribe, give us comments, give us feedback. I know I've not been great with getting videos out recently, but again, I'm hoping to do better. I am really hoping to be able to get back on the roll with my videos again. I think my last one was about one of my heroes, Mary Anning. Please check that out. So yeah, anyway, let's get to this. So, this first section is going to be about woodlands. The authors of this part are David Coombs of University of Cambridge, Ewan Bowditch, Inverness College, University of Highlands and of the Highlands and Islands, Vanessa Barton, Forest Research, Bethany Chamberlain, who was in the last section, who's an author for the last section, I'm pretty sure. She's of the BES herself, the British Ecological Society. Flora Donald, she is both of the University of Cambridge and the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. Martina, Egedusevich, either way, she's of the Harriet Watt University. Harriet Watt University. Eliza Fuentes Montemayor of Scotland's Rural College. Jeanette Hall, who is of Nature Scot. 9. Alan G. Jones of Sion. Emily Lyons of the University of Cambridge. Bonnie Waring of the Imperial College London. Emily Warner of University of Oxford. And Andrew Weatherall of the University of Cumbria. So I'll go over that again. Authors of this section of the report: David Coombs, University of Cambridge; Ewan Bowditch, Inverness College, University of the Highlands and Islands; Vanessa Barton, of the Forest Research Group, Bethany Chamberlain, the BES, British Ecological Society, Flora Donald, University of Cambridge and the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology, Eliza Fuentes Montemayor of Scotland's Rural College, Martina Ejedzisevich of the Harriet Watt University, Jeanette Hall of Nature Scott, Alan G. Jones of Sion, Emily Lyons of the University of Cambridge, Bonnie Waring of the Imperial College London, Emily Warner of University of Oxford, and Andrew Weatherall, University of Cumbria. So, let's get into this. So, number 1, key points. The United Kingdom's forests currently store 1.09 billion tonnes of carbon and sequester about 4.6% of the country's total emissions. The UK government's commitment to plant over 30,000 extra hectares of woodland per year by 2025 offers significant opportunities to mitigate climate change through carbon sequestration, although the full benefits will not be felt before 2050. Depending on the choice of site, species and establishment method, these new woodlands could also benefit biodiversity and deliver multiple ecosystem services. Now, I do know the Labour have promised, and they have not rolled back on this, to create 9 new woodlands across the country, or across the islands. So they like Labour actually keeping in line with the first point here. Number 2, large-scale afforestation should avoid peatlands, productive agricultural lands, and habitats of high conservation value, focusing on instead on poor quality grazing land, of which there is more than enough to fulfill government planting commitments. However, this loss of grasslands would reduce the UK's capacity to produce meat and dairy products, unless other regions were further intensified, which could do more harm than good unless we switch to a more vegetable-based diets. If tropical forests were destroyed to create pastures which supply the UK do more harm than good if tropical forests were destroyed to create pastures which supply the UK with imported meat. So we do need to societally change up our diets. I don't think we need to completely get rid of meat. I do know that the moors, one of the reasons why the moors are such a desert in terms of ecosystems is because it's all grass. I mean, here in the southwest, in South Devon, we have the only subtropical rainforest in the United Kingdom. And it's shrinking. We need more trees up on the moors. In fact, we need more trees everywhere, but we do need more trees up on the moors. Not only that, but the reintroduction of, and I know I'm doing people's heads in at this point, but the reintroduction of wolves will help to rejuvenate the soil. Because they will be taking down deer, to which the nitrates and other nutrients go from the dead carcass into the soil and rejuvenate the soil, which then rejuvenates the flora and fauna around it, yeah? So, Anyway, number 3. Small-scale establishment of native woodlands within agricultural landscapes will provide opportunities to reconnect fragments of ancient woodland, protect wildlife, and better connect people with nature if made accessible. Natural establishment of woodlands should be encouraged where appropriate. Yes. Now, I have to say, here in Torbay, we do have quite a few woodlands. I got woodland that way, got woodland that way, I got woodland that way. And there's more beyond those. Obviously, it'll be a lot more difficult with cities, but it's not impossible. So yeah, number 4, non-native conifer plantations could provide. Non-native conifer plantations provide timber and other wood products, reducing the UK's international environmental footprint. Conifer plantations can be damaging for nature, but careful planning can reduce that impact and even benefit some species. In order for plantations to meet their potential, the adaptation of woodlands and forestry to future hazards is essential. This includes ensuring diversity is increased in plantations, pests and diseases are controlled, and creating complex canopy structure. This would do really well for our bird species, especially. Yeah, no, I like. I agree with this. Obviously, I mean, when it says to diversify the species, don't just use a monoculture of the same fucking tree. Number 5, selective harvesting of trees in native woodlands provides a source of fuel wood, i.e. a renewable energy that substitutes for fossil fuels and other wood products. Some species thrive in selectively logged woodlands, but felling large old trees and clearing dead wood is harmful to birds, bats, lichens, invertebrates and fungi that are woodland specialists, so these should be avoided. Yes, I get sick and tired of going into a forest to find out that one of the biggest trees in the forest or in the woodlands has been cut down. No. Leave them alone. Now, don't get me wrong. If they're causing, if they've got rot or something, then yeah, I get that. But just taking them down because it's unsightly, I don't fucking care about your worries about it being unsightly. It's gonna ruin your view. Fuck off. We need those big trees. Anyway, 6. Past grant schemes aiming to support woodland creation have rarely met annual planting targets due to social factors including bureaucracy, traditional perceptions of land management, and financial viability. Local and regional I never get this fucking word right. Participatory approaches are needed to negotiate around different objectives and build collective power for brokering public payments for nature-based solutions. Yes, the government and councils have not done enough. Too often, they bow down to the social conservatives and the traditionalists that don't fucking care. They want to keep doing the same damaging land practices they've done for centuries. It's disgusting. The reason why our ecology is so fucked is because of these bastards who want to stick to the traditional management practices. Fuck you, you damn cunts. Sorry, this wasn't supposed to be as angry as, but he does my fucking head in. Anyway. So, that was the key points to this section. The introduction to this section in number 2. The world's woodlands could play a significant part in offsetting greenhouse gas emission GHGs in the next 20 years, providing humanity with GHG removal capacity to offset emissions in hard to decarbonise sectors. Woodlands already remove about 25% of anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions from the atmosphere at a global scale. If the international community halted deforestation, restored degraded forests, and replaced lost woody cover, then woodlands could provide up to a quarter of the cost-effective climate mitigation required in the coming decade to stabilise warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. The Independent UK Committee on Climate Change, the CCC, has recommended that tree cover to be increased from 13% to at least 17%, which isn't. We need more than that. Existing woodlands are managed more effectively, and agroforestry is encouraged. The 25-year Environment Plan also commits the UK to establish new woodlands. Yeah. Which I have to say, again, Labour have not rolled back on this. This is still a part of their plans. Ambitious woodland policies are often met with varying opinions as to the best approach, and in England this is highlighted by responses to the English Tree Strategy consultation. Confor, which represents the views of forestry businesses, urges large-scale commercial planting facilitated by a simplified planning process. In contrast, two environmental charities call for woodland cover to be doubled, while others emphasise that new woodlands can help reconnect nature. This variety of opinions reflects the fact that woodlands can provide nature-based solutions, NBSs, to multiple societal needs, including timber production, carbon drawdown, and improved mental health by connecting people with nature, and various institutions that have different priorities, each with varying implications. Now, I'm more with the second group rather than the businesses. But yeah, like that needs to we need to do a proper full consultation and bring these groups together, and not just have loads of small different groups coming up with all sorts of different ideas and all arguing against each other. We need to bring these people together. Anyway, 3. Climate change mitigation potential. The UK's woodlands store large quantities of carbon, 1.09 billion tonnes of carbon, and currently sequester about 4.6% of the country's GHGs each year. This regulating service has been valued at £1.96 billion per year. However, the forest carbon sink has steadily declined over the past 20 years. There are broadly 3 ways to increase the UK's woodland carbon sink in future. Afforestation. Afforestation of farmland is effective at sequestering carbon in plant material, litter and soil. The UK is committed to planting 30,000 hectares of woodland per year by 2025, which we are in 2025. So this report is a bit old, and the Tories did not make that much headway with it. The Labour Party have actually put money to it, with each of the 4 countries having their own targets and support schemes. The CCC estimates that these new woodlands will sequester an additional 2 million tonnes of carbon dioxide per year by 2030. Simulation models suggest that planting 23,200 hectares of new woodland annually for the next 40 years would eventually sequester an extra 12 million tons of carbon dioxide per year up from the 19 million tons of carbon per year at present. But it would take at least until 2070 to reach that peak. An alternative to planting trees is to allow natural afforestation. Diverse, naturally established forests can accumulate carbon rapidly once sufficient trees have colonised the site. However, the initial phase of woodland establishment is hit and miss, depending on the proximity of seed sources, the density of ground vegetation, and herbivory pressure. This is where deer overpopulation is a serious problem, and which is why, again, I'm going to bring up wolves. We need wolves. Because like they say here, herbivory pressure. That means those herbivores who strip who strip the land of vegetation. That's largely deer and farm animals. Don't get me wrong, like sheep and cows. But the biggest problem is deer. Anyway, at least when it comes to that. Potentially delaying carbon drawdown by a decade or more. Unless these issues are resolved, example, by assisting seed dispersals, scarifying soil, planting clusters of key trees and controlling herbivores. Now, controlling herbivores needs to be done because we need the predators back. We need their natural predators back. I'm sorry. Oh, but my cat. I don't care. Your cat is not more important than our entire environment. I'm sorry, that's just the facts. Natural colonization remains a risky approach to meet the 2050 emissions targets. Yeah, but it's still, I'm gonna badger this point, and I'm gonna continue it. We need the natural predators back on this fucking island. Anyway, protecting existing forests. Protecting natural forests from being logged, proforestation, is recognised internationally as an effective natural-based solution, NBS, for removing CO2 from the atmosphere. Previously logged woodlands become major carbon sinks once protected and allowed to regenerate, and even after maturity can continue to accumulate carbon in deadwood and soils. However, historical deforestation has left the UK as one of Europe's least wooded countries. And while it is important to protect our remaining native woodlands, more trees need to be established to create significant carbon sink. Increasing rotation lengths of commercial plantations also leads to carbon sequestration, but is not sufficient to meet emissions targets. However, there is also uncertainty about the permanence of woodland carbon stores, both native and exotic conifers, given the risks of introduced pests and diseases. That's true. That's true. That's why, again, this needs to be taken seriously. Increased production of timber and other wood products. 6.5 million tonnes of wood that is harvested from UK woodlands annually meets only a small fraction of the domestic demand. The CCC has recommended that more native woodlands are brought into the sustainable management to meet this demand. For instance, harvesting trees to produce fuel wood reduces carbon stocks in the woodlands themselves, but the fuel wood substitutes for fossil fuel, so reduce emissions overall. A similar principle applies with timber production in commercial plantation. Making more buildings from wood could significantly reduce emissions from the construction sector, as concrete production is a major emitter of CO2. So maximising wood production can be beneficial for the climate, even if it comes at the expense of carbon storage in the plantations. Calculating the abatement potential of managed woodlands requires complex carbon accounting that transcends industrial sectors and tracks the persistence of harvest products through time. But these accounts are seldom available. The simulation model indicates an additional 30% carbon sink once harvested wood is included. And then you've got some graphs which, I'll put the link below so you can check check these out yourselves. Figure 1, predicted impacts of different management interventions on the UK woodland carbon sink, adapted from the Red Report of 2009. The simulation models predicted the additional carbon sink resulted from the management interventions compared with business as usual. 3 scenarios presented. Enhanced afforestation equating to 23,200 hectares of new woodlands each year from 2010 to 2030. That's the red line. Reduced harvesting of forests to increase their carbon stocks. That's the light green line. And optimizing rotations to maximize wood production. that's the dark green line. Again, I still trying to find the right program, recording software for me to do this, so I can show you what I'm fucking seeing. I know, a bit technophobic of me, but yeah. But again, I will put the links in below, so you can check this out yourself. Note that the simulations do not include the carbon sink that could arise from protecting naturally established woodlands from deer. Deer! It's not the first time that deer are going to... It's not the only time that deer are going to be brought up in this. I'm betting. Panel A gives the woodland sink, i.e. carbon stored in trees, soil and litter, while B gives the total abatement. The woodland sink plus carbon stored in harvested wood or consumed in place of fossil fuels. For comparison, the CCC estimates that an additional carbon sink of 17 million tons of carbon dioxide per year would be generated by 2050 if its recommendations were adopted. The mitigation potential of UK forests is affected by three poorly quantified phenomena. First, conifer plantations absorb more solar radiation than deciduous broadleaf forests and thereby warm the atmosphere. The large-scale transformation of Europe's broadleaf forests to conifer plantations over the last 3 centuries has contributed to global warming and largely counteracting the climate benefits of locking additional carbon in forest biomass and soils. Yeah, it's all well and good to use conifers, but we're creating monocultures of pine wood, of conifer woods. It's not healthy. It's just like, to me, it's ridiculous. Oh, we'll just do this because it's easier. But that's not better, is it? Secondly, tree planting can reduce soil carbon stocks. About 70% of forest carbon is held in the soil, and site preparation typically releases carbon from the carbon stores, creating initial carbon debt which needs to be repaid before management delivers any climate benefit. Trees also alter the quality of soil organic matter as they grow, with long-term consequences for carbon storage. Thirdly, the removal of carbon from forest ecosystems via stream water transport is poorly quantified. We recommend further research into these factors to refine predictions of carbon drawdown associated with woodland establishment and management. Yes. More in-depth research needs to be done. But because this has not been taken seriously for so fucking long, not enough resources and funding has gone in to doing this research. I'm hoping that at least some of the money from the investment for the R&D money from the budget goes into this. It is ridiculous. Anyway, 4, climate change adaptation potential. Woodlands can provide climatic adaptation benefits for people such as flood and erosion alleviation. For analysis of tree planting, so see chapter 6, freshwater systems, for analysis of tree planting impacts on flooding. We're not there yet. But in order to do this, adaptive measures are needed to create forests and woodlands that will be resilient to future risks to continue providing natural-based solutions to society. Climate change may threaten woodlands by increasing the frequency of disturbance events that kill trees. Unlike other sectors, adaptive measures for forestry need to account for long time lags between tree establishment and maturity. 3 adaptations are key. A, increased diversity, genetic and species. Species-rich ecosystems are typically more resilient to environmental threats because different species respond differently to different stressors, thereby buffering the system as a whole. Native tree species are genetically diverse and thus have likely to enable adaptation and resilience to climate change. Natural regeneration or locally sourced seeds should continue to be a core component of future woodland creation when biodiversity conservation is a key objective. The Forestry Commission recommends including species and provenances with more southerly origins. Yeah. Now, Graham Hughes of Politics Social has said many times now about the monoculture of trees in this country in terms of those planted in residential areas and more inhabited areas than being only male trees, non-fruiting trees, which has also created, it's more people having problems with pollen. So yeah, anyway, B. Control pests and diseases. Significant barriers to forest adaptation include widespread tree mortality from pests and diseases, which with risks increasing due to reliance on imported plants. The UK Plant Health Risk Register currently includes approximately 300 pest and disease species likely to attack trees and pose a greater immediate risk to woodlands than climate change. Resistance strategies such as integrated pest management practices, raising more planting stock in the UK, and using natural establishment where possible, improving biosecurity to prevent the movement of contaminated water and soil, and increasing surveillance to catch outbreaks early will reduce their likelihood and frequency. This is where forest rangers, woodland rangers, we need more of them. Engagement of the plant supply chain in the new plant health management standard and associated certification scheme will be an important mechanism to achieve this. And C, improve structure. New woodlands, whether forestry plantations or new native woodland, can be established with future diverse canopy and forest structure planned from the outset to increase resilience to hazards. For example, planting in some areas can be delayed. Fast-growing species can be planted in mixtures with slower-growing species, and wider spacings can be used to allow some natural vegetation to establish, or thinning regimes or coppicing can be planned to ensure structural diversity develops within stand age and size. It's harder to transform existing forests into continuous cover systems, but work is being done to develop successful techniques. Now, this is where I have an argument with people who say that no one is doing anything about our ecological, environmental, and climate change problems. That's simply bullshit. What is actually happening is that not enough people are doing something. The governments globally aren't doing enough. But to say that literally no one is doing anything is fucking disingenuous and utter bullshit. Sorry if that goes against your absolutist view on the world, but that's not what's happening. There are a lot of people out there trying to deal with these problems. They just aren't supported. That's the issue. Not that there isn't anyone doing anything. There are people doing stuff. There are people trying, coming up with different ways to rejuvenate our environments, to mitigate climate change. Sorry, but I get sick and tired of people, of doomers who go, oh, but nothing's being done. No. Things are being done, just not enough. Stop with the fucking absolutism! Anyway, 5. Biodiversity value, bringing native woodlands back into active management. The CCC recommends selective harvesting of what they consider to be native woodlands to produce fuelwood and other wood products. Limited harvesting of overgrown woodlands creates structurally diverse canopies that favour ground layer plants and tree regeneration. However, old trees and deadwood should be retained in managed woodlands as they are immensely valuable for woodland specialist species and are nationally uncommon. Ancient woodlands are particularly valuable sites for veteran trees, deadwood, and woodland specialists, but occupy just 2.2% of the UK. It's disheartening, I tell you. Harvesting any veteran trees should be avoided as it takes many decades to accumulate woodland specialists in secondary woodlands. Other forms of sustainable management that can deliver benefits for nature include harvesting non-native conifers that were planted in 39% of ancient woodland sites in the 20th century. Wow! Creating opportunities for nature to recolonize, reducing or eliminating populations of deer. Again, I told you it would come up. And uncontrolled livestock, which browse on seedlings and prevent regeneration from occurring, recognising that the UK woodlands lack predators that would have once kept these herbivores in check. In clearing of invasive species, including Rhododendron ponticum, to enable natural regeneration process to resume and ground flora and epiphytes to recover. I fucking told you that it would bring up predators and deer again. I'm not going on about this for no fucking reason. Increasing the cover of native woodlands. New woodland planting provides opportunities to create more, bigger, better and joined nature reserves. In particular, there are opportunities to increase the resilience of the UK's network of 42,000 ancient woodlands, at least 250 years in Scotland or 400 years in other UK nations, which are predominantly less than 5 hectares in size and highly fragmented. Natural or assisted establishment is most appropriate when expanding native woodland for biodiversity conservation, as it produces a more diverse structure with better matching of species to soil and topography, provided relevant species have seed sources in the area. Culling of deer in areas of the Scottish Highlands has led to the gradual return of pine and birch woodlands. But not enough culling of deer goes on. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Not enough people are willing to do it. Like Scotland have had some success, but I would still say that they would do well to reintroduce the wolf into Scotland. And several rewilding projects have led to the return of open woody habitats once grazing pressure from domestic livestock is reduced and sometimes wild pigs reintroduced to disturb the soil. Yes, actually, boar and wild pigs are another one that is that are needed. Again, if we're going to reintroduce them, we need to reintroduce predators that will keep their numbers in check. Rewilding projects that return woody cover to agricultural landscapes have had some notable successes at restoring rare wildlife. Planting native woodlands on species-poor farmland increases local biodiversity over time and improves the connectivity of the fragmented nature of the woodlands. Woodlands imperil wildlife if allowed to establish on open habitats of high conservation value, priority habitats such as lowland heathlands and species-rich grasslands, so these should be avoided. The moors, like Dartmoor in particular, is not a species-rich moorland. It's very monoculture up there. There's like the bowgrass is just it's overrunning them all. Um, Local populations of native species are genetically diverse, and locally sourced seeds should usually be a core component of future tree planting when biodiversity conservation is a key objective. Although there may be opportunities to diversify impoverished floras and expand the range of rare species by introducing species from further afield. Increasing the cover of forestry plantations. Forestry plantations are negatively impact the biodiversity if planted into species-rich habitats. However, when planted into degraded agricultural lands, they can benefit some organisms. Spatial planning can reduce the negative impacts. For instance, protecting native woodland and herbaceous habitats near stream courses and retaining patches of old trees within the landscape can enhance opportunities for nature without compromising productivity, and is a requirement under the UK forestry standard. So yeah, like I really don't think people take seriously how important our woodlands are to us, and why, you know, it's weird for me to go up country. When I say up country, that's pretty much all of the country, all of the island, because I'm right on the bottom, pretty much. The woodlands are just dotted about, and there's loads of unproductive agricultural land. This is why I would want to, this is why I wouldn't do good as Prime Minister, by the way, but I would take land, I would, appropriate land off the wealthy. At least some of it, for this. And if they want to try and do me, I'd be like, no. Well, like, this is law. I will make it. I would make it law that if your land does not contribute to the rejuvenation of our environments and ecosystems, then your land will be appropriated. Tell me what you think about that, actually. What do you reckon about that? Anyway, 6. Trade-offs. Where to plant trees. Afforesting high-quality arable land, i.e. grade 1, 2 and 3A agricultural land, should be avoided, as it reduces the UK's capacity to produce food, leading to an even greater reliance on food imports, which are linked to deforestation in the tropics, releasing CO2 from those forests and destroying biodiversity hotspots. Additionally, planting trees on productive land presents a major opportunity cost. However, there may be opportunities to establish groves of trees on steep, inaccessible, or unproductive pockets within arable landscapes, and also in agroforestry, hedgerows, and field margins and stream sides, without compromising food production. See Chapter 5, Arable Systems, for a detailed discussion. Again, we're not there yet. We're still on woodlands. Anyway, peri-urban woodlands also provide natural places for people to enjoy nature and have a social value that outweighs any loss of arable land. Yes. Listen, I find it incredibly heartening to live where I do. A lot of people think that Torbay is just a shithole, but I much prefer living here than somewhere like Plymouth or even Exeter, especially London. No cities are doing good with this. I mean, Exeter's not too bad. There are still plenty of forests around, but it's still growing. Anyway, establishing woodlands on low biodiversity grasslands, grade 3B or 4 agricultural land, offers the best prospect for large-scale afforestation. The Forestry Commission has identified 5 million hectares of low-risk land, while the Friends of the Earth figure is 1.4 million hectares, having screened out species-rich grassland and priority habitat for conservation. Even if further areas of priority habitats are discovered, there appears to be enough rough grazing land to double woodland cover. However, afforestation of these grasslands will not deliver climate benefits unless it is accompanied by a shift in diet away from meat and dairy products and or a greater productivity on the remaining land. The shift is necessary because without it we would need to import additional meat and dairy products from overseas, with knock-on consequences for land use change in other regions of the world, such as i.e. telecoupling. Afforestation of peatlands and organic rich soils should be avoided. Afforestation requires improved drainage to achieve strong tree growth, but aeration accelerates microbial decomposition of the peat, releasing CO2 and generating a major initial carbon debt that takes years to repay through tree growth. Planting on peat that is deeper than 50 centimetres is now outlawed under the UK forestry standard, but planting on shallow peat continues, supported by evidence that these plantations can sequester carbon over the production cycle if productivity is high enough. However, modelling suggests that peat should be avoided altogether to avoid damaging the soil, and the new plantation should be created in low-grade agricultural land instead. In one study, native birches and pines planted on organic soils were found to result in carbon loss from the soil, which offsets carbon accumulation within living biomass, leaving no climate benefit of afforestation after 12 and 39 years, respectively. Policies regarding the establishment of woodlands on carbon-rich soils, including moorlands and heathlands, may need refinement if further evidence emerges of adverse effects on the large stocks of carbon held below ground. Yes. So whilst I say that we need to have some more woodlands on the moors, it needs to be done properly. Which species to plant? Successive governments have subsidised afforestation with non-native conifers, recognising that Sitka spruce and a handful of other conifers can deliver much greater volumes of merchantable timber than native woodlands. This has created a rural industry that employs 43,000 people in forest management and primary wood processing, providing timber and other wood products to a country heavily reliant on imports. However, several native broadleaf species store more carbon than introduced conifers across the drier and warmer parts of the UK. Moorcroft, mixed species planting that leads to oaks and dominance through succession also results in more durable carbon stores than achievable by conifer plantations. There is currently little incentive for landowners to plant broadleaf woodlands because carbon storage remains public good, but the value of this service far exceeds the market value of timber. And if that were reflected in government incentive schemes, then more broadleaf woodlands might be planted. Yeah. So that needs to be shifted. That's where government needs to do more of a job. The UK Forestry Standard provides a framework for more sustainable forestry, discouraging geometric plantings of single species in large even-aged blocks in favour of mixed systems, including native species, at least 5%. Broadleaf woodlands store about 29% of the carbon in the UK forest biomass and could sequester significantly more if established over sufficient scales. Based on studies in Europe, mixed species forests can sequester more rapidly than monocultures. I spoke about the damage of monoculture forests in this country. There are more climate resilient. Particularly in regions where climate imposes a strong limitation on wood production, we argue that any government subsidies intended for biodiversity conservation should be directed to native woodland creation and management under public money for public good principle. Yes. Fucking yes. Renewable energy versus forest carbon. Wood can be used to heat buildings and fuel electrical turbines, offering a substitute for fossil fuels. The UK would require afforestation on an unrealisable scale to meet the demands of its existing wood power stations domestically, let alone expand power production, and large-scale afforestation with non-native species for energy production would be environmentally damaging or compete for land with food production. However, small-scale use of wood can potentially be environmentally sustainable, particularly if using thinnings or other waste products from forestry, native woodland and hedgerow management. This and might be considered as a natural-based solution in some limited circumstances. So yeah, it's not, when it comes to using actual wood rather than fossil fuels to create energy. Again, you can't just do that as a wholesale across the board. Like, a lot of businesses will want to do things across, like, wholesale across the board to make it easier on their businesses. I'm sorry, but fuck them. No, they need to pay attention to this. They need to be brought into line with this. Anyway, paying to protect tropical forests versus afforestation. Protecting natural tropical forests could deliver immediate climate benefits at a fraction of the cost of other climate mitigation activities, and benefit some of the billion people who rely on forests for their livelihoods if governance and social justice issues can be resolved. However, international commitments to create new plantations in developing countries risk harming natural ecosystems and livelihood without delivering climate benefits if hastily implemented without due diligence. As I said before, this needs to be done properly, and as said there, with due diligence. Okay, 7. Human well-being value. Woodlands provide multiple services in addition to climate and biodiversity benefits, including timber and fibre production, water quality, and green space for human well-being. Natural capital accounts show that non-market benefits of woodlands are about 12 times more valuable than the market benefits of wood production. This calculation does not place a monetary value on biodiversity, but biodiversity underpins most natural capital elements. Case study 1. Thetford Forest is a large-scale commercial forest on the Norfolk-Suffolk border, mostly planted with conifers between the 1920s and 1960s, in an area of low productivity sandy soil supporting arable fields, grasslands and heathlands. An analysis of a wide range of management options and ecosystem services has clarified the nuances between trade-offs and synergies associated with different management techniques. This led to recommendations for a landscape design that balances and maximises overall ecosystem service delivery, whilst including some restoration of ecologically important heathland rather than focus on a single benefit such as timber production. Exactly. Now, I do know, having walked from Torbay to Exeter and vice versa a couple of times now, I can't do it anymore, but when I was younger, that there are too many conifer forests, like monoculture forests. It doesn't do any good. Like these are woodlands that are purely used for logging. It's bad. Anyway, 8. Implementation of woodland natural-based solutions. The prevailing political and policy context in the UK provides scope to turn the potential of natural-based solutions into practical action. With a focus on public money for public goods and the need to replace the common agricultural policy, there are new opportunities to develop market-based approaches to catalyse change and recognizing that woodland planting and ongoing management activities need to be commercially attractive. There would be strong financial incentives to buffer ancient woodlands and integrate large-scale woodland projects into suitable upland landscapes if the social cost of the interlinked climate and biodiversity crises was reflected in the subsidies governments were willing to pay landowners for establishing and managing woodlands. This would have to be carried out as a part of a managed transition away from existing farming practices. Again, farming practices need to change, which will piss off the farmers, at least a number of them. The total social value of carbon sequestered by UK woodlands has been valued at £239 per hectare per year, which is greater than the expected return from timber production. Incentives to establish woodlands for carbon sequestration are currently too small to drive change on the scale required. Only 266 projects have registered for the Woodland Carbon Code, a voluntary standard by which verified carbon credit can be produced since 2011, and these are predicted to sequester about 6.2 million tonnes of carbon dioxide per year in total over their 100 years lifetime. This is relatively small given that the UK's emissions are currently 350 million tonnes of carbon dioxide per year. The government-backed Woodland Carbon Guarantee makes steps towards addressing this issue, offering landowners the chance to bid for guaranteed carbon payments to make tree planting a financially viable option. It does irk me that environmentalism has to reconcile with the market-oriented economies that we all live under. We don't live under communism, we don't live under socialism. We live under a market-based economy. And so, at least in the short to mid-term, we environmentalists need to reconcile ourselves with this. It's widely recognised. It's widely recognised that research, policy, and practice must pay more attention to socio-ecological considerations to reconcile different objectives, which must be taken into consideration when planning woodland natural-based solutions. Past grant schemes aiming to support woodland creation have rarely met annual planting targets due to social factors including bureaucracy and traditional perceptions of land management, and because they have struggled to compete financially with other options. So, again, they're badgering this point about traditional land management. I'm sorry, conservative farmers, go fuck yourselves. Catch up. And, struggling to compete financially with other options. Again, we need to lobby the government more. Research, as well as emerging partnerships in practice, support the development of local landscape scale or regional participatory approaches. These partnerships enable negotiation around different objectives, collaboration across land ownership boundaries, and build collective power for brokering public payments for natural-based solutions, marketing of local products, and maintaining long-term monitoring. Then is a need to support locally led partnerships which can identify the natural-based solutions of importance to their region and how these should be delivered. Woods and forests can deliver considerable ecosystem services, including carbon sequestration, if carefully thought through, located and implemented. So again, this needs to be done properly. Now, now it's just references to everything that came before. So yeah, this episode is just on woodlands. Let me know what you guys think of this. I'll put the link to this site to this into this report in the description below. But I need to know. I would love to know what you guys think of all of this, because now, for me, as someone who lives around a lot of greenery, and knows about the monoculture practices of forestry companies, like forestry organisations, like, we need to deal with this. Again, I'll badger this point again. Deer are a major problem. Livestock overgrazing is a fucking major problem for woodlands. Now, we'll get into the dangers it causes for other environments in later episodes as we go through different chapters on this. And again, this report is from February 2022, but it's still applicable. All of what these guys are saying is still applicable. As I said last year, I know this is slightly out of date, but it's still applicable. So yeah, like, for me, this is my priority. Now, don't get me wrong, I do worry about the benefit stuff. I worry about the issues for trans people. I do worry about this stuff. But my priority as an individual is the environment, is our ecologies. Our country is not as wild. It's not very wild in that respect. We've damaged our own ecosystems over centuries, and we need to rejuvenate them. This again, and I will badger this point, means reintroducing natural predators to this island. I can't badger this enough. Now, the lynx is due to be reintroduced. This is good, but it's not enough. You can't just reintroduce the lynx and go, yeah, that's fine, we've done it now. No. We need more species. It's not just about flora. No, it's not just about a diversification of floral species. We need more of a diversification of faunal species, animal species. And it's somewhat heartening to me, again, that Labour are still continuing to hold to the promise of 9 new forests in England and Wales, and was it 7 new reservoirs? This is good. This is good. Steve Reed seems to be doing good on DEFRA. I'd be very interested to know if he's read this report. If not, then I might very well send an email of this report to him, if others haven't already done so. And if you wouldn't mind helping me, could you also do the same? For those people who watch this channel, please advertise this. Talk about natural-based solutions. Bring up this report and other reports that are related to this. But this is too important to ignore, and too many people find that social problems are a bigger problem. The land we live on is dying. We need, that's more, I'm sorry, but that is more important. That's why That's why my focus is more on this than on more social policies. That doesn't mean I don't care about the social policies. Of course I do. But this is more important. Climate change and environmental restoration are more important. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this. I can see maybe some arguments coming up, but I actually think most people agree with what I've said throughout this video and the other videos. The next video in the Enviro-Vids should be the next section to this, I think, which will be on heathlands. The next chapter, the next video will be on the next Enviro-Vid video should be on heathlands. So, again, let me know what you think. I will put the link to this in the description below so you guys can check it out yourselves. It's a long report, I will say. This is why I'm doing it as a series, as part of a series. But I really want people to see this and try to, at least in some small way, get involved themselves. Get involved yourselves in this. Bug your MPs. Bug your councillors with this. But this is needed. So yeah. I do hope you enjoyed this. I'm sorry I've not been doing videos as frequently. Hopefully things should get better as time goes on. I don't feel as bad as I did a month or two ago. So hopefully I should be getting better with this. I'm hoping to do the next episode to this. What are we on? Probably next week. So yeah, please join me then. This has been One Angry Pagan, fighting for the environment. My shield's at your backs, guys, and my sword at your service. Blessed be, badgers. Have a good one.